but I know especially in these couple of weeks we've all got lots and lots of things on our to-do lists, so we'll get started, and like I said before, I'll make sure that we're certainly not here any later, and we'll just see where we go. So just to introduce anyone that doesn't know me, I can see lots of people that are going to be sick of hearing my voice, I'm sure, by now. So my name's Kirsty. I am a class teacher in Ormston Primary School, and for the first time in quite a while I am back in my classroom. So this has been done with home learning. I'm on hub rotation this week, and then that's us. So it's a bit of a novel experience doing this from here, and also do a bit of training with Google for Education, or its latest incarnation. So today's session, we're going to talk about Google Classroom. So we're going to talk about some of the more advanced, I suppose you could call them, settings within Google Classroom. We'll start off from a very sort of basic point and then move on quite quickly. Oh, before I go any further, just to let anybody know that's not noticed that David is in the call again, there's recording the session. So if anybody has an issue, if they could let us know now, that would be fab. Otherwise, we'll be recording it so that we can share that with anybody that isn't able to join us today. So as long as we're all good for that, just check that nothing pings. Fab. Yeah, so the point today is to start from kind of sort of the beginning, but then move quite swiftly into looking at some settings and things that you perhaps don't use as regularly. I know that there's even some in this that I don't use in my normal classroom practice because I'm a primary school teacher, but there are some bits that are relevant for both primary, secondary, and probably beyond as well. I've just noticed what the question that we posed at the beginning there on this first slide was what things are we going to take back into school when we go back to in-school learning from our practice that's worked really well. And I know that one of the things that I'll be taking back is using Classroom for some of my more formal assignments, writing, moderation, that sort of thing, just because it gives me a format that I can share more clearly in. So our agenda, very briefly, we'll have a look at some of the settings that you might choose within Classroom. For those of you that were in our session last week, I touched on some of these. So managing workflow and assignments, both from a pupil point of view and a teacher point of view and a workload point of view, and how we can help ourselves and our young people to navigate the demands of potentially having notifications and things going all the time. And then we'll look at the feedback process, and I'll make sure that there's time before 5 o'clock if there's any questions or anything anybody wants to check, and then make sure that we're done and dusted. So I'm certainly not keeping anybody beyond where they need to be. One of the things, again, that I just want to reiterate is I am a class teacher, so some of the things that I'll be talking about are things that I have used in my own practice. I'm going to be jumping between two different views, so me as a teacher and a pupil account, so we can look at what it looks like from the other side. I know sometimes that can be a wee bit tricky, especially when you're working with younger pupils, and I suppose older pupils as well, who might not be able to navigate some of the turn-in, hand-in options. And then also I do have my own actual real classroom that if we need to check anything, I can pop into that one as well. So like I say, we'll start off fairly straightforward to begin with and then go quite swiftly. So I'm going to stop presenting some slides, and I'm just going to show you show you into Classroom. We just swap this over. I'm actually going to present the whole thing, and then you'll be able to see. Don't think I've got anything open that I shouldn't have. Always handy to know. So in my Classroom one, now this comes with a caveat, is because I'm in my trainer account. It is an American-based one, so there's really only one option that's different, but I'll show that when we get there. So I'm going to create a Classroom. I'm sure everybody knows this already, up to the top, and we're going to create a class in here. I don't even know what date it is. And while that's doing that, just have a think about, I may have mentioned this in the last time, is some sort of naming convention for your Google Classrooms. If you're working in a high school and across a department, have a think about the fact if you label everything as first year, then one, you're not necessarily going to know, but also your pupils who have are obviously in first year classes might not know which one is which. The other thing is have a think about if you're in a primary school. I have hundreds of archived classrooms that say primary 6 or primary 7, because that's generally what I teach, primary 6, primary 7. So I can go back through my archived classrooms from the invention of Classroom quite a number of years ago now, and I have all of those still in my archived classroom. What I now do is I name it and with the year as well. It just keeps it really nice and tidy, and we'll show when we're tidying up our classrooms in a few moments. Makes life simpler for lots of people, both for you and for any pupils that are getting assignments as well. Also makes it much easier when you're archiving or copying Classroom, which again we'll come to, so you know exactly what's going on where. So now that I've got my naming system, which is for me is always demo and the date, so I know I can delete this at the end, I'm going to go into the settings cog. Before we add any pupils, I want to set up my settings, how I want them to be. So in the settings cog in the top up here, and then I'm going to scroll down. So things I want to look at in here. In this section, thinking about the stream and how do you want your pupils to be able to interact with Classroom. Now this very much depends on how you're using this Google Classroom and what you're using it for. If you have a huge number of pupils in it, then perhaps everybody with the ability to post and comment might really clutter up your stream, and pupils might lose important announcements from the class teacher, from yourself, or from other adults. If they can only comment, you obviously restrict what they can post, but they can comment on the teacher's post. And if you want to close that down to them completely, you can change it to pupils can only post or comment. I have classrooms with both settings. Some with where it's fully open and they can post and comment, and I've got some where it's closed down. I find smaller groups, so perhaps in primary's case, reading groups or homework classrooms, I have it so that they can post and comment, because I want that sort of interaction and that support. If it's the whole school one, which we have, which is where assembly is based, we don't really want 180 kids all just chipping in with hiya, hiya, all the way through. It doesn't help anybody in their lives. So for this one, I want this to be an interactive one, so I'm going to leave my students can post and comment. The other option I have in under here is classwork on the stream. Now this predates some of the settings in Classroom. Historically, when we had Classroom, we didn't have a classwork tab. We just had that stream and everything appeared in there. Now that we have classwork as a separate tab, I always have this off as hide notifications. If you show all assignments and details, you get quite large panels that come up with every single thing you post. Even condensed ones, you get quite a bar across. So the practice I go with is having it off, and that way you then just establish that your pupils always go to classwork in order to find their classwork, and your stream is for discussion or announcements, that sort of thing. I think it helps to keep that workflow for them, because if they're looking in the stream, they will see things, but they'll see them in the order that you've posted them, and not necessarily how you might want them to manage their workload over days or weeks. So I would like this hidden. We also have in here the mate settings. So we're able to generate a mate. So if I generate a mate in this classroom, this mate is solely for this classroom, and at the moment no one can get into it because as a teacher I haven't gone in and opened that yet. You can toggle on and toggle off, which shows the mate link in the settings here. Now because in East Lothian we have the settings in our establishment set that pupils cannot create mates, they cannot get into that until I have opened up that mate. So if I keep that as a fresh link, nobody can get into that, even if they can see it, they can't get into it. And when you're finished using that, back into settings, turn it off so they can no longer see it, which gives you the chance to reset the code. And then that's another fresh meet. So you can never have young people sitting in a meet that you're not in. So we can have that level of protection and safeguarding for our young people. Good practice also, just make sure that you're last one out the meet and that you close down the meet behind everybody that comes out. Because you'll go in first, you will have host controls. So within host controls, I'm sure a lot of you have discovered that, you'll have the little setting down at the bottom and you can kick people out of the meet. It's great fun to have that power to be able to drop people out of the meet, which is also quite handy, especially if you've got younger pupils that, or maybe pupils that have got multiple tabs open and they just don't realise that they're still live in the meet. The grading calculation bit I tend not to use, but we will come back to this a little bit when we look at rubrics in a few minutes. So now that I have my settings as we want, I'm going to invite some people into this classroom. Now there are multiple ways you can do this, and I'm sure everybody's got their own way of doing this. The host control, yeah, the person that creates it and is first in will have has the host controls. Yep. Just be wary of if you're using the same meet over multiple calendar invites. So if you're removing one and doing it over multiple times, then that won't necessarily be the case. People will, if they've already been in it, they'll be able to get back in it again. So just fresh meets, that's an unfortunate phrase, new meet link, a new assignment, so that a new calendar invite, so that you'll have the host controls. And if all else fails, end the meet and start a brand new one with a link if you find that you don't have it. Sometimes we have in the large meets where we've got multiple teachers coming in at once. Yes, there is a setting to do that. So in the bottom, I don't think I can present my meet screen to that extent. At the very bottom, or in your bar at the bottom where you've got the microphone and the camera button, you'll see the name of the meet, or the nickname for the meet. Next to that is a little shield symbol. And if you click on that, you can turn on and off the quick access. So if you have quick access off, then you need to let people into the meet, unless they've been directly invited into that meet. So unless you've given them the link, which would be the link that you would in the bottom, I don't know, left or right, sorry, the bottom left-hand corner, if you copied that joining information and gave them that directly, they would be able to join it. But anybody that's just clicking through won't be able to get in until you let them in. You'll get for example, you might have, if anybody's joined with a non-EduBuzz account to this meet, you might be needed to be let in. And those settings will be different depending on whether or not you're logged in with your EduBuzz account. So all those settings are the way we have configured it within East Lothian to work in our EduBuzz account. So just be wary if you're someone like I am who has multiple profiles and multiple accounts. Just be careful which one you're logging in with and joining with at which point, because you might find that you need permission to get into a Google Meet if you're using, like if I'm using my trainer account, which is one I am at the moment, I would need permission to get into my school assembly, for example, whereas my EduBuzz one will let me straight in. Any other questions about that? Are we okay? Fab. If it comes up, or if there's anything that comes up, please just ping it in the chat or let me know. That's why I keep looking off to the side, because I've got the chat on just beside me. So inviting students, I'm sure you've all got different ways of doing it. And for me, one of the advantages of having these different ways is that, again, it depends on what you're using the classroom for, and it depends on the age group of the pupils that you're working with. So if you have pupils who are fairly independent and are able to do things themselves, then the display class code button is always great, because you stick it on your board and you can create a class in your classroom for a group pretty instantly, join it, and you're sorted. Always helpful that they now make it with a really nice big button, so can they work out. If you discover that they can't quite work out, what letter is that, then you can reset your class code so that you can if they can't work out what it is, if they can't read it. The other thing you can do is you can send that link at the top here. So if you're trying to email it to parents for them to do it for you, you can copy the invite link and then you can send that in whatever way, you could email that or whatever you choose to do. Again, the thing with that, especially if you're sending it home to parents, only people with only Edubuzz accounts will be able to access our classrooms. So if you're sending that to a parent who's at home, who's logging in using iPads or using anything like that, if they're already logged into their own Google account, a private Google account or another establishment, it won't work. So when they say it doesn't work, I can't get in, it's almost certainly that they're logged in with a different account. And then finally, we can just direct add. So I'm going to do that just now. We'll save that. We'll come into the direct add. So in my people tab at the top, so when I was speaking earlier, and this was the tab, the classwork one that didn't used to exist. Mine says grades on it. Yours will, everybody else's says marks. Again, this is just because it's a US-based training account. And into people, you can add in teachers. And I always pick on the same poor person because she comes up at the top of my list. I can click on add in my teachers and I can invite them. Good practice would be to have stage partners or management or whoever else would be appropriate within your setting added in as teachers. We can turn off all the notifications for other classrooms. So I'm a teacher in pretty much every classroom in the school so that I can go in and help when I need to. But the last thing I want is all the emails from every single class down the school. So I've got all of that turned off, and in my mobile app I've also got all the notifications for every classroom except for my own ones turned off. I can talk about that in a little second when we get to how we manage our own workflow. If I add in, yes, certainly. Also email notifications, and on the mobile app there's a way of turning off notifications as well. And you can do that class by class. So for example, my classroom one, I get all my notifications through. The primary 3 one that I'm a member of, so I can go in and help out, I don't get anything for at all. So the other thing with this is because I'm the only teacher in this class, I am the class owner. If you're moving or changing classes, just make sure that you add in somebody else and then you can transfer ownership to them and leave them to it. And you don't then have to get involved in it too much. I'm going to add in a student in here. Let's just add in student 1, and then I can just do direct invite. So once I've invited the student, they will see that tile appear in their classroom automatically, so they don't actually have to do anything. Really helpful, especially if you're joining younger pupils. You can just have all that there done. You do have to do it one by one, so if it's a class, it's manageable. If you were trying to join add an entire year group at high school, you're probably going to be better just either giving them the link or giving them the class code. Otherwise you could be at it for a very long time. I'm just going to add in a few students, just because then we'll be able to see some different bits and pieces. Okay, so now that I've got my students, I'm going to show you how they accept. So I've now swapped into student account. So anytime you see this lovely little, whatever they are, person, this is me in as a student account. You can see the students in a whole lot of other accounts because it's a trainer one. If I refresh this now, it should, when it sorts itself out, it will then allow this person to become part of that classroom, which it's not wanting to load. Please just hurry up, do as you're supposed to. Okay, let's go into this one. So this student now is within the classroom, and I will try and force that to load in a second. And what I'm able to do is I'm able to add their guardians. Now, if you're working with younger pupils, so primary school age, then we can do that automatically. If older pupils, then it would be a consent from the pupil to do that. It's kind of nice and good practice to talk about consent and sharing information, but we would also be doing it for for the older pupils, and them getting consent to add in their parents' details. So I'm just going to actually change in my teacher account into a different classroom. So I can show that in the pupils tab in here. And this student 3 down the bottom, this banner here is the bane of my life that just appears constantly, and I spend my life moving about. Because every time I open new tabs, it wants to appear. So this student has accepted my invite. I'm now able to email my student, and I should be able to add my guardian, which might just be because I'm in a different establishment. So I'll be able to add in my guardian information in there. It should be just there. I'm not entirely sure why it doesn't want to give me it today. And I can add in the guardian emails. We just did that with when working with the office, and the guardian gets a once a week summary of basically the to-do list from the classroom. They don't get the stream, they just get the classwork information. Okay, so let me sort out my tabs. First I'm going to check I'm actually in. It's because I'm in a student 3. That's not helpful. That's why. Looking for a student that is not actually in. No. This is what I get for having so many profiles. I'm just going to stop presenting for a moment because I'm going to put some accounts in. So let me just pop off of present. And I'll swap this pupil back over. The problem with, like I say, having so many things at once. Yes, just let me sign in. Please just let me sign in. Actually, I've just decided a much easier way of doing this. Sorry, folks. As if I just add student 3. Then we can use student 3. There we go. So when you think it's something very simple, and it's just the fact that I can't work Google Classroom, which is always a worry. There we are, we're back and functioning. So now, because I directly added that student, they're able to join that there. So they don't have to put in codes, they don't have to click on links, they don't have to do anything like that, because I direct added them in the people tab, and now they can join that classroom there. So they're now in the classroom, and all they can see is the stream, classwork, and people. They can't see the marks tab because it's a student, obviously, and it's not a pupil. It's not a teacher, even. So that's all they've got there. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come back to a classroom that I've already made and that I've already set up. So I'm going to come into this one, and I've already had a look at some of the settings in this one. So in my classwork tab, I may have spoken about this last week, and I'll just revisit it for anybody that wasn't in last week and is just in here. In this classroom, it's set up with the topics of days of the week. Now, this worked particularly well with home learning, to perhaps have them for the days of the week, so that they knew that everything they were doing that week was in one topic and then the next. If you are perhaps working at high school or working across sort of longer periods, these might be topics, as in like class topics. So it might be subject areas, something like that, units of work perhaps. Or you could organise them by in primary curricular area. So in my own classroom, I have them organised by curricular area with other topics that are to do with things like there's a help desk and other sorts of things in there. When you go to create, you can create your topics at that point. And you can have as many topics as you like. You can also rename topics. The little emojis that I've got in here are added from, I've added those from a Chromebook or from a personal one. Your school laptop, teacher laptop won't allow you to add that. That's just an extension. It's just an emoji extension, excuse me. Sorry. So different classrooms, I've got it set up different ways. It will very much depend on how you are running the workflow within the classroom, that particular classroom. I have some that are one way and some that are the other. Like I say, it very much depends on what it is you're using it for. Pupils can see topics that already have posted material. They can't see topics that don't have posted material. So this pupil wouldn't be able to see the check-in, and they wouldn't be able to see Monday because these are both still sitting here as draft. So you can actually prep all of this and have it sitting in draft form, and the pupils can't see that. What they can see is the Tuesday one because it's got, and the Wednesday because they have posted assignments already there within them. So we have in the Create the option to create assignments and to create materials. If you use assignments, and this is one thing that we changed from the first lockdown to the second within school, we had posted assignments for all sorts of extra information. So for things like how to access the library, how to access Accelerated Reader, how-to guides, videos, all that sort of stuff were in as assignments. And what that actually ended up doing was hugely clogging up the pupils' to-do list and their work list. So if it's something that they actually have to do something with, they need to turn in or they need to create something or respond to, use assignment. If it's information, use material, and then it won't appear in their to-do list. That was something that we had to take quite a bit of time to teach the children how to use, and I'm still not saying that it's perfect. It certainly isn't in my class, but that was something that we made a change for, and it's much better now. So I have a daily check-in and draft form here, and it's a material. So for this material, I want to add in a Google form. So I know that I have in my Drive, I have a Google form, and I know I was in it earlier, so it should be in recent for me. There it is. So this is just Google form. I think I showed some of us this the other day, or last week rather, and it's just a check-in form. So when you're adding in a form as an assignment, just be wary that you don't send them this link at the top, because that allows them to edit your form, and you'll end up with everybody editing your form, which is not what we want. What I want to do is I want to go to send, and I want to grab this link here. So from send, that link, and copy that. Then when I come back to my material, I can add the link, and now the pupils will get the link to fill out that form. So they're not going to be getting the link to edit it, they're just going to be getting the link to fill it out. So if I click on that now, it will open it in that view only mode. And that's just a form with some pictures, multiple choice questions with some pictures in it. And we use that as a regular check-in. Because I want the pupils to do this every day as a daily check-in, I want it as an assignment, a material rather than an assignment. And because I've grabbed that link for them to fill it in, I can just post that now, and that's that done. So this is what I have in my classroom. It sits at the top under a topic that says check-in, please complete daily, and it's left there all the way through. Because when you use the form, I'll just come into this view, in responses, you will see all the pupils' responses, and it just banks them all, or you can ask it to create them to a spreadsheet. And I want it all to go to one spreadsheet. There'll be nothing in this because there's no content in this. And you will see that you will get a view that looks like this, complete with a timestamp. So you don't actually need to keep reposting it, because you can just sort it on time and you'll see it that way, or you could sort it on the pupil's name and you will see it that way. So if you want to see one pupil every day, sort on column B. If you want to see everybody for that day, you'd sort it on A. So that allows us to post the material that we can then leave running, and we don't need to keep coming back to this over and over again. Okay, some other things that we're going to have a look at in our assignment. So I'm going to try and go quite nice and quickly here. You see that I have this posted as a draft in here. So we come into edit an assignment and we'll just check through some of these menus in here. We have the option to add and add things from our drive. You can obviously embed, file upload. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add from my drive, and I would just like to make this, I think this was the literacy one. This is a reading comprehension task. So I would like to add this document, which is their answers, and I would like to add this the next document, which is the actual text. Now, usually when I'm doing this for my classes, I do tend to put both of these in the same document, just because I find the children find it easier to not be clicking between two different things. Options we have here: view, edit, or make a copy for each. If you post this and you haven't already clicked make a copy and that's what you need, you can't go back and edit that because the copy is made at the moment you assign. So just be wary that if you're going to need make a copy, you need to select it at this stage, or you have to repost the whole assignment. And I only want them to be able to view that. I don't want them to be able to do anything else. Topics in the side, for some unknown reason, they don't appear in the same order as they do in your classwork page. They're all there, but they don't appear in the same order. You can give it a grade if you choose to, but I don't want this one to be graded. And now what I can do in here is I can select this to go to all of the students that were in my class. I've only got one at the moment. Or I can select it to go to multiple classes. So one of the comments at the start was collaborative planning and working across stage partners or collaborative groups within school, perhaps across departments within a high school. You could create an assignment that goes out to all first years, and rather than having to repost in multiple classrooms, we could just select multiple classrooms here and this would post into there. One thing you can't do is if I've selected classes, I then can't sub-select students. So if I want it to only go to some students, I would need to do class by class and then repost that assignment. I'll show reposting in just a moment. Okay, so for this assignment, what I want to do is I am going to set my due date. The other thing that perhaps is helpful is to come up with whatever, some sort of system within your class stage school as to how and when you're going to create due dates. You can, if you desperately want to, you can select times as well. But you can certainly select the due date in there. In the post, we have the option to assign or to schedule. Now, for scheduling, I find this really, really helpful. This is one that's made a big difference. No, you can't schedule ahead for more than one class, but there is a way of getting around that. So what you can do is, if I schedule this for this class, I can repost any assignment from one class to another. So I don't need to recreate that. If I change classes and come into my demo one, from Classwork I can go to create and I can reuse post. So I can then reuse post, and I know that that was posted in this classroom. And I can find the correct one, the reading comprehension, there it is, and it's scheduled. So it's sitting there as scheduled. I want to create new attachments because it is within it's in a different classroom, so the class teacher probably wants their own attachments for this. Click on that and reuse, and what it will do is it will pull all of the information through from the first classroom through into this one. It always takes a moment to do this, and it pulls the whole thing through there, and you just have to select your due date again. And you don't have to recreate the assignment. You do still have to schedule it, but you don't have to recreate it every time. That one has been a huge benefit for us, because as a stage team, one of us perhaps creates the literacy, schedules it in their own classroom, and then we just repost it from there. Somebody else creates the maths, and then we repost it from there, and find that makes a big, big difference. So I'm going to come back out of that and into my pre-made one now. So this is the one that I'd actually built some bits and pieces in, and I'm going to minimize that. Now, let's have a look at perhaps how we might look at some assessment within this. So if I open up this assignment so we can see it in a little bit more detail. Actually, I'm going to go into the edit mode because it shows you a bit better. Okay, so this assignment, we are doing a bit of research online, and they have a document here that they're going to get a copy of. So they've got a copy of here, and you can see that each student will get a copy. Now, because this has already been posted, I can't get in and edit that because this has already happened. But in here, we have rubrics. And we're going to have a little look at how the rubric works. So I'm going to, let's remove this one to start with. We'll create a rubric and then I can put that one back so it'll be better than mine. In the rubric, you have the option to reuse and create. You can reuse a rubric from any class that you're part of. So if someone in your department had created these, you only need to do them once. So creating rubrics is something that I'm looking at for literacy, for a sort of a development thing for myself, is to look at the East Lothian frameworks and create rubrics that match the, especially the writing frameworks for my classes. Once that's done for one of us within of the classrooms that I'm part of, that will be done for everybody. So when you reuse a rubric, you can reuse it from any classroom. So these are obviously all my classrooms, and all the way back to my archived ones as well. Go away. So to create a rubric, it's fairly straightforward, and I do apologise, I'm not going to teach anybody how to do something that's blindingly obvious. You have a criterion option at the top. Okay, so I'm just going to be really basic here. So we have effort, and then you can add in your 3 levels here. This has got points because it's looking for scoring. If you don't want points, you can turn that off there, and then you might have whatever your titles are. Again, my apologies if I'm spelling incorrectly. And please don't judge me on what I've chosen to add as my criterion. It's just whatever I can type in quickly. If you are using a device that you're able to get emojis, one of the things that can be quite nice is you could traffic light these. So you could red, amber, green across these, and then you're able to put in the description in underneath. For my own classroom, for my primary 6s, I have an option here that says incomplete, please up level, one that says complete, one that says great work, and one that says excellent work, complete with you have 2 house points, you have 3 house points added in at the bottom. You can add as many criterions and build this up to be as complex as you like, adding in your various criterions and then all your levels within that. I'm just going to leave it as 1 just now. And then, oh, what have I done? That's because I've got too many. I need to remove this, that's what I need to do. And then I can save this. And so now I've got a rubric that appears down in the corner here. I'm going to take this one out and put the original one back in again. And you'll see that I can reuse this rubric. So this was the one I created before, and it had 2 criteria. And it looks like this one. So this one has used points. You can see that it's got a lot more detail, obviously, than I just scribbled into mine. And it's not having a fun time of using the coloured spots because I'm presenting from my school laptop. But on the Chromebook, this looks perfect, as it does on everything else. And there's 2 in here, an understanding, analysing, and an understanding the text in there. So although creating the rubric is a bit of a guddle and takes a little bit of a while, it actually can be really, really helpful in how we might choose to mark. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into, oops, what is this? Let's now save this assignment. So we've got our criteria in there. The other option that I have ticked in here is I have ticked the Plagiarism Originality box. So what this will do is you have, for every Google Classroom you have up to 5 runs of this per classroom. So you can run an Originality report on 5 assignments within a classroom. So if you're working at secondary or in a particular department or setting where you're going to need to do lots of running originality reports, you might want to create a different classroom for each topic. So I'm thinking modern studies, for example, there's going to be a lot of research perhaps online. Unit 1, run that as one classroom, and then you'll have 5 originality reports that you can run within that. The student sees that, and you can run that as a teacher. So I shall show that in just a moment. Let me save this and let that do its thing. So you can see that when you look at that as a teacher, you can see the rubric there, and you can see, I don't think, no, at this point you can't see that there's an originality report to be run. So as a student, let me just join this, put the student back to where we're supposed to be. And this student has the ocean task here. I'm just going to unsubmit this so we can start from the beginning, since I'm using a different student. So when the student has come into this assignment, so this is the same one as we just created, or we just edited just now, you can see that the student can see the rubric. Now, one thing that they can't do, which I keep requesting as a feature, and to request a feature, you can click on this little button down here and you can request a feature. So if there's things you think, oh, I really wish they would do that, please do that and click on that box. There is someone at the other end of it, bizarrely, and they do listen. So the more people that click on that, so if you find that there's something that's really annoying, then do that. The one that I'm forever requesting at the moment is I want to be able to schedule feedback. So when I'm marking at 5 o'clock at night or a Sunday afternoon, I don't really want it to be pinging back to my young people at that point in the day. Because a lot of them have got notifications on their phones and things as well. So I keep asking for that one. So feel free to join in with my campaign that I want to be able to schedule feedback. But what they can't do is self-assess, which frustrates me. I would quite like them to be able to click on this and self-assess. But our student has clicked on into their work, which is in here, and they have completed this work. This is my own work, I promise. Well, is it? Let's find out. So they have obviously completed this task in here, and what I want to do as a teacher is I want to run that originality report. So when I click on that and run it, oh, I'm running it as a student, it lets me know whether or not as a student I have done anything that I'm not supposed to. So the student gets the option to do that, and they will run it and it will double check. As teacher, I'm going to turn this in once this is done, and then I will show what it looks like from the teacher's point of view. Excellent, turn in. If the student is turning in an assignment that doesn't have anything attached, it will say mark as done in that box rather than turn in. And that causes no end of kerfuffle for families when they're saying, I can't find a turn in box. Turn in and mark as done are the same thing. I have a poster on my classroom wall that says that. So as a student now, as a teacher, I want to come into this and I want to actually have a look at marking this. So into my assignment, I want to view my assignment, and I can see that one person has turned it in. This is my student who's turned it in. I'm going to pop in here. And this is where you see the benefit of the rubric and how much time it can save us. So now that the rubric has been created, it appears in our marking view in here. And I can, in order to mark this, if I already know what they are, I can just click on them. Or if you click on this drop down, yes, they do. They get the percentage, and so does the teacher. So the student can run it on up to these 5 assignments as well that you've turned it on, and they will see it. And then I can just click on the rubric there like that. So in the student originality report, have I done it, or did I cancel it too quickly? I might have cancelled it too quickly. Yes, because I've turned it in. There shows a percentage and it actually highlights it. It does exactly what it does in the teacher one. So I shall show you the teacher version. Yes, I know that's expired. Let's go to teacher. So at the moment it's checking plagiarism in this one. And I would like it to run there. Actually, it's taking its time to do that. Why it's taking its time to do that? It actually shows you. Let's see if swapping. I'm going to come out of this and go back into it and see if it hurries up. There we go. So now you see that it's flagged up one passage, and what it looks like when you click on it is it actually highlights the section, shows you the web match, and shows you how close it actually is, and it will show you the percentage as well as being flagged. So the student sees this as well. It looks exactly the same in the student's view. Remember again though that you can run 5 per classroom. So if you're needing to use that, just create classrooms for every for units, or perhaps create a classroom that is your assessed tasks if these are assessed ones, rather than having everything all in together. When you're in this view for grading purposes, you've got private comments at the bottom there. Now private comments only appear to the student in this view, so they appear down here, so you can have this discussion with private comments. And I know that sometimes younger pupils have lost those in there, and if they don't have on their emails, if the student doesn't have on their emails or their notifications, they will only see that comment if they happen to be in this view. So there's a little bit of a balance there about it's brilliant, but pupils need to have their emails turned on. And when I pop a private comment in, wrong profile, when I pop a private comment in here, it will appear in that same bit at the side there. You can also do in-document commenting and suggesting. So just the same as you do in a normal Google Doc, you can click and put a comment in there. This putting comment in at the side within the actual document means if they're in the document and they're not in Classroom, they will still see it. And that can be quite useful as a formative form of feedback, and you're saving your private comments for your summative. Excuse me, that seems to be quite a manageable way of doing that between those two different types. You can also go directly in and do suggested edits as well. Yeah, I can just tell them to stop with that sort of thing if that's what I need to do, and the student would see that within the document. So we've looked at feedback and commenting. Rubrics take time to set up, but the benefit comes at this stage in the marking. Your Originality Report's 5 per classroom and can be run by the pupil or by the member of staff or by the teacher. And the other thing I just want to, we've spoken quite a few times about notifications. Oops, I don't want my own classroom. So let me just come into so I'm back in my main view here. If I click on the lines and I go down to the bottom to settings, I can then turn off email notifications. So that was just in the view that you see that at the side, and in settings, and you can turn off email notifications there. If you're working in an app, so I have the app on my phone because that's a choice I've chosen and I'm happy with. Obviously different people make whatever choice works for them within their workload. In your settings in the Google Classroom app itself, I'm just going to open it so that I can make sure I remember. And if you click on those same lines again and scroll down to the settings option, you can click on class notifications. So when you go into class notifications, I'll just turn this around. It's not going to be the clearest because I'm showing you a computer screen. I am then able to, hang on a second. I think I've got a blurry background going on here. Yeah, there we go. I am then able to toggle on and off each of these individual classrooms. So you can see that some of them I have on and a whole lot of them I've got off, so that I'm only getting notifications through on the device for specific classes. You also have the option, if you go into device notifications, this is obviously an Android phone, if you go into device notifications, you can change what you actually get notifications for. So that was in the same 3 lines option. Let me come back to my classroom. That was in the same 3 lines, either on your device, and then scroll down to the bottom and you will find the settings at the side there. So then in emails, you can choose what you want. So if you want some of them on, you can have some on. I can't stand getting emails because you get thousands of them. So I have them all off. But you can choose to turn them on and off, and you can toggle individual classrooms on and off there as well. Okay, so now having a little think about how we can use this, I'm very conscious of time, how we can use some of these classrooms to really help our own workload. So we've looked at marking and things like that, but how are we going to help our own workload? I have a master classroom, actually. Let's come to this view here. I have some master classrooms, and you can see that I've got the 2 that I've created for today. And because I've named them, I can see exactly what they are. And I have a master classroom here. I can copy this classroom, and it will copy the entire classroom. And it will save all my assignments as draft. Now, uses of that might be creating a bank of resources or creating a template classroom that you might use for an entire topic or unit when you're, if you're working in a department in a high school. Our whole school one, we have a template for, and I actually have a template one for each of my years, my school years. So when I get a new class in August, that I already have certain things already in it. So a whole bank of how-to resources, things like how to use Classroom, how to use BorrowBox library app, how to get in touch with me, how to find a variety of things that we want, log into Accelerated Reader, all these sorts of things I already have, because I discovered that every year I was spending time building a classroom over and over again. And the advantage of that when we went to our second lockdown was I was able to add in another teacher. So add in our primary 5 teacher, who's a probationer. She was able to make a copy of that classroom, and then it gave her the bones of something to work with. So especially if you're looking at staff, introducing staff to this, or you're looking at staff who are obviously new to the profession, perhaps NQTs, then you could have a bank of resources of basic things, or as a school decide that these are all the important things we want to include, and you could use that in there. So I now have a copy of my classroom. It doesn't copy the stream, and it doesn't copy the people. So I don't have any people over, but what I do have is all of my topics and all of my assignments in draft form. So they're all sitting there already in draft form, ready for me to do whatever it is I want to do with. One thing that you're also able to do is you can drag and drop and rearrange these. I'm not quite sure why I don't want Tuesday before Monday, but I might. And the other thing I can do is I can drag and drop particular assignments and drop them into previous work. It's a bit of a guddle that you can't multi-select. You have to drag and drop each one. But in order to make my life easier in my own classroom, I bring the previous work up to where I need, and then I drop things in, and then I put it back. Just because I got fed up scrolling up and down through thousands of topics every week. Other things that we have spoken about that I'll just revisit briefly while we're at this point of building up resources that can be shared, because I certainly think that I know that was some of the comments that were made, and that's a big thing for myself, my own practice, is the things that we have shared and the level of interaction and support that we've given each other recently is something that we don't want to lose. So when I go to create, I can reuse a post, and I can reuse a post from any classroom that I am a teacher in. So whether it's archived, whether I'm the class owner or not, it doesn't matter. So you see, I can go back here and pick up these archived classes. So in my in my own class one, I'm coming across things now that primary 7 profiles, for example, probably shouldn't say that out loud for anybody that's going, oh God, here they come. I can go and find the primary 7 profile one that I used in the classroom before, and I can repost that straight into my classroom without having to recreate it or repost any of the assignments. You can archive and unarchive. So if I come into this view here, you can archive and unarchive as often as you like. So I can archive this classroom, what will happen is that I will still be able to see it in my archived ones, but nobody will be able to do anything in that. The pupils won't be able to do anything in it, and the files will not be deleted. So don't worry about archiving classrooms and losing banks of evidence. The classroom folder, the Google Drive classroom folder structure remains unchanged. So you can archive that to get it out your way, because otherwise it just causes chaos. And it will then appear down in your archived classes. If you decide that you actually need that, here are my archived classes, I could just restore that and bring it back out of archive. The classroom folder structure, just actually while I mention that, I promise I will stop talking in time. The classroom folder structure, in your drive you have a folder called Classroom. Ignore it, pretend it's not there, and don't be tempted to rearrange or touch anything within there. If you move any of these drives, it confuses the route that Classroom is going into, that's where it's posting things, and you'll run the risk of then losing assignments. So if you need to access any of the assignments, do it through Classroom rather than through Drive. It's much easier and much safer, especially with mine having run Classroom for so many years. That folder is enormous. It's absolutely. The other thing it will do is it will share. You'll find the documents in shared with me. Just ignore that. Pretend they're not there. It's a messy stop off space for things. Access everything through Classroom itself. Okay, I'm very conscious of time, and I promised that I wouldn't keep you. My own class is evolving, and there are so many. One of the things